The room was warm, filled with the smell of roasted chicken and baked bread. It was another family gathering at my sister's house, and once again, I found myself sitting at the end of the long wooden table. Plates clinked, voices laughed, but my heart felt heavy. As I quietly shared how my small business was coming along, hand-making wooden toys for children, my brother-in-law, Mark, let out a loud laugh. Everyone stopped eating and looked at him. "A toy business?" Mark mocked, raising his glass. "You really think people buy wooden toys in this day and age? Come on, this is just a little hobby for you." The sting of his words was sharper than I expected. I felt my cheeks burn. I wanted to say something, but my voice caught in my throat. I forced a weak smile, pretending it didn't hurt. But it did. Deeply. I looked down at my hands, rough from carving and sanding. These hands held my dreams, and though they laughed today, they didn't know the fire burning quietly in my heart. If only they knew what I was about to become. I kept silent, even as Mark's jokes continued. "Maybe one day," Mark grinned, leaning back in his chair, "you'll make a toy good enough to be sold at the flea market." Laughter filled the room. Even my cousins chuckled nervously, not daring to defend me. I swallowed hard, feeling the lump in my throat rise. My eyes stung, but I refused to let them see me cry. Inside, my heart ached. These were my family, the people I loved. Why did they mock my hard work? Did they not see the care I put into every wooden train, every carved animal? I thought of the nights I stayed awake, sanding pieces by candlelight because I couldn't afford a proper lamp. I thought of the little boy at the fair last week, whose face lit up when I handed him a hand-carved elephant. That smile meant the world to me, more than all their cruel jokes combined. I clenched my fists under the table. Let them laugh today. Let them have their moment. Because deep inside, I knew. Storms do not last forever. One day they would choke on their own laughter. The evening dragged on painfully like a wound that wouldn't close. Mark poured himself another drink, still basking in the glory of his own cruel humor. "You know," he slurred slightly, "maybe you should give it up and come work at my car dealership. At least then you'll make real money." More laughter followed. I looked at him, truly looked at him for the first time. He wore a suit that probably cost more than all my tools combined. His smile was wide, but there was something hollow in his eyes. He measured success by the weight of his wallet. I measured mine by the weight of dreams. Taking a quiet breath, I placed my napkin on the table and stood up. My voice trembled, but I forced it out. "I believe in what I do," I said softly, "and one day you'll see." Mark's laughter faded, his eyes narrowing with mild surprise. But he said nothing. The room went quiet for a moment. The clinking of forks paused. I left the table, heart pounding, tears brimming but unshed. They didn't know it yet. But the seed of my success had already taken root. And soon, it would bloom for all to see. I sat back down, feeling my heart beat like a drum inside my chest. My hands trembled under the table, but I clasped them tightly to hide the shaking. I kept my smile, though it was thin and tired. I didn't want them to see my tears. Mark's voice still filled the room, loud and sharp like a knife. "Dreams are for fools," he said, raising his glass again. "Real life needs real jobs." I thought about my father. He used to tell me, "Child, your hands will build something beautiful one day." His voice was soft, but it still rang in my ears even though he was long gone. I remembered sitting by his side, learning to carve little birds out of wood. He smiled every time I made one, even if it was rough and crooked. He believed in me when no one else did. That memory wrapped around my heart like a warm blanket. It gave me strength. They could laugh today, but they could never take away the lessons my father taught me. I looked at Mark, hiding my pain behind my smile, and thought quietly, "You will see." Mark wasn't finished. He leaned forward, eyes gleaming with cruel delight. "You know," he said, pointing at me with his fork, Maybe you should bring your toys next Christmas. We could use a good laugh. The words cut deep, but something inside me shifted. No longer did I feel small. No longer did I feel powerless. A quiet fire started to grow in my chest, burning away the doubt. I met his gaze, steady and strong. I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. In that moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Was it surprise? Maybe even fear? "I'll do better than that," I replied calmly. My voice was soft but firm, like the steady rhythm of a drum. "One day you'll see my toys on every child's shelf in this country, and when that day comes, remember this moment." The room fell silent. The clatter of dishes stopped. The hum of chatter died. Even Mark, who always had something to say, found no words. I stood up once more, feeling taller than I ever had before. The fire in my chest blazed bright. This was no longer about proving him wrong. It was about proving myself right. The rain began to tap softly against the window, as if the sky itself wept for me. But inside, I felt strangely calm. Mark broke the silence with a fake laugh, trying to brush off the weight of my words. "Sure, sure," he said, waving his hand. "Dream big, little dreamer." But his voice had lost its sharp edge. There was a crack in his confidence. I saw it, and for the first time I felt no fear. I turned to the rest of my family. Their faces were a mix of curiosity and quiet shame. Maybe they were starting to see me differently. Maybe they were wondering if, just maybe, I wasn't so foolish after all. I wanted to scream, to cry, to tell them about the nights I went to bed hungry just to save money for my wood. About the mornings I woke up with sore hands but still carved until my fingers cramped. But I stayed silent, because I knew the storm was coming. A storm I had built with my own 2 hands, out of every insult, every laugh, every tear I had swallowed. And when it arrived, it would be unstoppable. As the chatter slowly returned to the room, I sat back down quietly, folding my hands in my lap. My heart felt heavy, but not with defeat. No, it was something else. A quiet cry deep inside my chest, not of sadness, but of determination. Mark leaned over his plate, stabbing at his food with a fork. He looked uncomfortable, like my words had left a splinter under his skin. He tried to pretend it didn't matter, but I saw it. Everyone saw it. I looked at my mother across the table. Her eyes met mine for just a moment. She didn't speak, but her gaze softened. A small, almost hidden nod passed between us. She too remembered my father's words. She too believed, even if only a little. The rain tapped harder on the windows, like it was clapping softly for me. In that moment, my pain felt like fuel, not a burden. I felt something rising in me, stronger than ever before. They could mock me all they wanted. They could laugh until their voices broke. But my dream was alive, burning quietly under the ashes of their doubt. Mark, still eager to hold the room, cleared his throat and forced a laugh. "You're all looking at me like I'm the villain here," he said, shaking his head as he wiped his mouth with a napkin. "I'm just telling the truth. Someone has to." He looked at me, expecting me to shrink away, but I didn't. Instead, I held his gaze, my eyes steady. I could feel my heart pounding, but I refused to look away. What they didn't see were the silent battles I fought every day. Waking up before the sun, sanding wood until my fingers bled, selling one toy at a time at small markets, saving every penny to buy better tools. Nights spent hungry so I could afford paint and varnish. They saw none of it, but I lived it, and I wore my scars with quiet pride. "You don't understand because you've never built something with your own hands," I said softly, my voice carrying through the room. For a moment, the only sound was the ticking clock on the wall. Everyone stopped to listen. Even Mark had no reply. I had planted a seed of truth, and deep down, they all felt it. The storm outside grew louder, as if nature itself had joined the conversation. Mark's smile had faded now, replaced by a tight line across his face. He shifted in his seat, looking uneasy. His confidence, once so strong, seemed to waver like a candle in the wind. I took a slow breath, feeling something shift in the room. My words had reached them, deeper than I expected. I saw my cousin glance at me with respect in his eyes. Even my aunt, who never had much to say, looked at me with quiet wonder. But it wasn't about them. It was about me, standing firm in the storm of their doubts. "You see," I continued, my voice trembling but strong, "every time you laughed, you gave me another reason to keep going. Every cruel word became wood for my fire." Mark opened his mouth to speak, but closed it again. For once he was out of words. The silence spoke louder than any insult ever could. Outside, a flash of lightning brightened the room for a moment, as if to light my path. Inside, my quiet strength began to rise like the morning sun. The rain now sounded like drums on the roof, as if the sky itself was angry at how they had treated me. But inside, it was not just the storm outside that grew louder. It was the storm inside me, too. Mark forced a laugh again, but this time it felt hollow. "Come on," he said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Don't tell me you think you'll really make it big with those little toys." His voice shook, just a little. I could feel every pair of eyes at the table watching me, waiting, wondering. I took a deep breath and let the weight of my heart pour into my words. "I don't think it," I said softly, looking right at Mark. "I know it." The fire inside my chest burned brighter. "I've built every toy with love," I continued, my voice rising just a bit. "For every child who feels forgotten, for every parent who wants to give joy. My toys are not just wood, they are hope." For a moment, the only sound in the room was the steady beating of the rain. And in that moment, something in the room had changed forever. Mark's face had turned red like all the air had left his chest. His pride, so thick and loud just minutes ago, now sat heavy and silent in the space between us. "You think love pays the bills?" He spat bitterly. But even as he said it, his eyes darted away, unable to meet mine. I saw it then, the crack in his armor. Every cruel word he had thrown at me came not from strength but from fear. Fear that I, the quiet dreamer, the one he always teased, might rise higher than he ever imagined. I kept my voice calm, almost gentle. "Maybe not," I replied. "But love builds things that money cannot. It builds trust. It builds hearts. It builds legacies." My words seemed to hang in the air, wrapping around the room like a warm blanket on a cold night. Even my aunt's eyes filled with quiet tears. She wiped them quickly, hoping no one would notice. But I noticed. I felt the shift. For the first time, I saw my dream not just as my own, but as something bigger, something that could heal wounds much deeper than mine. The warmth from the fire crackled softly, filling the heavy silence. I caught my mother glancing at me again, her lips trembling slightly. In her eyes, I saw the apology she never spoke aloud. She too had doubted me once, not with words like Mark, but with quiet sighs and worried looks when she thought I wasn't watching. But now, something had changed. "I always believed in you," she whispered, her voice barely louder than the rain outside. The words touched my heart so deeply that my breath caught in my chest. Tears welled in my eyes, and I had to blink them away before they fell. Mark shifted in his seat, uncomfortable with the growing warmth that wasn't about him. His power in the room was slipping, and he knew it. "You can believe all you want," he said sharply, "but dreams alone won't put food on the table." I looked at him, no longer with fear, but with pity. "My dreams feed the soul," I replied softly, "and soon they will feed the world." The words filled the room like a promise, a quiet, unstoppable promise. And though Mark scoffed, I saw it in his eyes. He believed it too. The fire crackled softly, filling the gaps between heavy breaths. My heart ached, not from doubt, but from the years I had carried silent pain alone. They saw only my smile, but they never saw my tears when the shop was empty, when orders were few and money was tight. Mark still tried to keep his proud face. He forced another sharp laugh. "Big dreams make small pockets," he sneered, as if those words could protect him from the truth growing in the room. But I was no longer the quiet dreamer he thought I was. I felt the tears welling in my eyes, not from hurt, but from release. Years of fighting alone, years of being mocked at this very table. Tonight, I was not hiding my tears. I let them shine. I raised my head and looked straight at him. "Mark," I said softly, "you never saw the nights I worked by candlelight, the days I walked in the rain to deliver my toys. But soon, the whole world will see what you never did." The words floated in the air like a quiet bell, and I saw Mark swallow hard. For once, he had no reply. A hush spread across the room, thicker than the storm clouds outside. Mark's eyes flickered, like a candle losing its flame. His proud shoulders drooped just a little. I saw the wall he had built between us, strong and tall for years, beginning to crack. My mother wiped her cheek quickly, her eyes bright with tears she could not hide. My cousins looked down at their plates, suddenly too ashamed to meet my gaze. I took a slow breath, steadying the storm in my chest. "You called my dream a hobby," I said, my voice clear but gentle. "But my dream is about more than me. It's about every child who holds one of my toys and smiles. It's about hope in small hands." The fire's warm glow made the tears on my face shimmer like glass. I saw the weight of my words settle over the room, heavier than any silence before. Mark tried to speak, but his lips trembled. He had mocked me for so long, yet now he sat frozen, watching the quiet strength rise in me like dawn breaking through the darkest night. They all saw it, and deep inside, they felt it too. The air felt heavy, yet something was changing, slowly, like the first light of morning creeping over the hills. Mark's proud mask began to crack. His eyes, once filled with laughter at my expense, now held something else. Fear. Regret? Even he didn't seem to know. "You think your little toys will change the world," he said weakly, his voice lacking the sharp bite it once had. I didn't answer right away. I looked around the room at the faces of my family. I saw them not as those who doubted me, but as people who might soon understand. Then, I spoke softly, but with all my heart. "They already have," I whispered. "Each toy I make carries my love, my hard work, my story, and soon, it will carry my victory." The room stayed silent. Outside, the rain eased into a quiet mist, as if the sky itself had been listening and now wept gentle tears. For the first time, I saw something in Mark's eyes I had never seen before. Not laughter, not mockery, but respect. The turning point had come, and nothing would ever be the same again. The rain outside slowed to a soft whisper, as though the sky itself waited for what would come next. My heart thudded in my chest, heavy but steady. I sat quietly at the table, surrounded by the people who had doubted me for so long. And then, it happened. My phone, resting on the table, began to ring. Every head turned. The screen lit up with a name that made my breath catch in my throat. National Morning News Show. My hand shook slightly as I reached for it. I pressed the answer button with care, my voice steady yet soft. "Hello?" A bright, cheerful voice filled the room from the speaker. "Good evening. We'd love to feature your beautiful wooden toys on our national broadcast tomorrow morning. We've heard your story and it's inspiring millions." For a moment, the entire room froze. Mark's fork slipped from his hand and clattered onto his plate. His eyes widened, mouth slightly open, but no words came out. My mother gasped softly, her hand flying to her chest. Tears prickled in my eyes, but I held them back. The storm was over. My moment had come. The air in the room felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. Mark tried to speak, but all he managed was a small, choked sound. He stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time, not as the quiet dreamer he once mocked, but as someone much, much greater. My cousins looked between me and the phone, their eyes wide with disbelief. My aunt's eyes filled with tears. She quickly wiped them away, but it was too late. The emotion had already spilled over. "I told you," my mother whispered, her voice trembling. "I always knew you were meant for something bigger." My heart swelled with emotion. Years of struggle, sleepless nights, and silent tears had led to this moment. Mark finally found his voice, but it came out in a whisper. You're going to be on the news? The national news?" I nodded, my throat tight. "Yes," I said simply. The rain stopped completely, as if nature itself had paused to listen. For the first time in my life, I felt the weight of victory, and it was beautiful. I had not just dreamed, I had delivered. As I ended the call, a tear slipped down my cheek, not from pain, but from overwhelming joy. The whole room was silent, filled with unspoken feelings. Then my mother stood slowly and crossed the room. She placed her hands on my shoulders, her eyes filled with tears. "I am proud of you," she whispered. Those simple words broke whatever walls I had left inside me. My tears flowed freely, and I let them. I had held them in for far too long. Even Mark, my harshest critic, lowered his head. His voice was small, almost ashamed. I was wrong," he admitted, his words trembling. "I see it now." His face was pale, his eyes glossy. The proud man who once laughed at my dreams now stood speechless. The family, once full of laughter at my expense, now sat quiet in respect. I smiled through my tears. "Thank you," I whispered. "To all of you. Your doubts were the wind beneath my wings." The fire crackled softly, warm and bright. My dream had not only come true, it had bloomed beyond my wildest hopes. And at that moment, I knew I had won. Dear viewers, if you felt my pain, if you wiped your tears just now, please, from the bottom of my heart, give this video a like. Leave a comment. Tell me your dreams. I read every single one. And if you believe in miracles, if you believe in never giving up, subscribe now. Let's keep this fire burning together. Your support means the world. Let's build this family of dreamers, one story at a time.